It's that time, and I'm live here with Jason Smith. So welcome as we go across this and have a fantastic time here as we talk all the way from LinkedIn to Facebook to YouTube. So, Jason, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here, and we're going to get into some stuff today, aren't we?
Yes, we are. I'm thrilled to be back.
Well, perfect. Well, other than the fact that right now that I see that our mouths are somehow not matched up. So let's keep talking and hope that this doesn't drive people absolutely batty. So we'll figure that out as we go. Jason's a good friend of mine. He's an Aslan senior consultant. And on top of that, he actually has his own company too, which kicks ass. So we are excited to have him. Jason, we started talking. I think one of the things that I really, really wanted to get into today was, man, this whole staying at home COVID problem.
Yeah.
It's jacking with people's mojo and with their ability to stay disciplined and on top of their world. What are you hearing?
Yeah, man, I've actually gotten a bite of that bug myself. I just have been stuck doing some training. We had to rejigger all of our face-to-face training, and we developed a very interactive face-to-face interactive virtual training. And that has me sitting on my butt for 6 hours a day. So now I'm starting to get a little bit of that lag, some of that zoom and gloom that people are dealing with. And it caught me because I got out on the trail and I started feeling it in my body from just being too lazy for 3 or 4 weeks. So I had to think about, how is this affecting me personally? And I put that to the group as well. How is it affecting me and my business from not getting into those daily things?
Right, that makes perfect sense. What I'm trying to figure out, though, is what do you do about it?
I haven't figured out the exact answer, but the number one thing is to focus on you first. I heard a great term the other day. It must have been about a couple of months ago. Someone hit me to enlightened self-interest, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to make sure our kids and our elderly parents, they're okay. We're going to take care of them and keep them engaged. But you've got to take care of yourself. So that means your personal things like your food. What are you eating? Are you sitting around eating a bunch of junk all day because you're binge watching your favorite shows? Or are you exercising? Or have you let that slide because no one's going to see you in the COVID coma that you're in? So little things like that, taking care of yourself is where it's got to start.
Okay, but all right, so we take care of ourselves and we try not to be obnoxious. I'm a big workout guy, so I spend a lot of time in the gym. But then what? I mean, your calendar is what it is. You're not having to drive anywhere, but everybody says they're too busy. Now what?
Well, first of all, I realize that nobody's really that busy. Have you noticed that? Like when you've talked to people and they tell you, oh, I'm so slammed, and you finally talk to them and you pick through what they're doing in their day, it's really not a whole bunch of real stuff that's dragging them down. They are just, in this funk that you're talking about, where they've gotten so lazy about keeping their calendars that really it's just that their day has gotten away from them and now they're behind on stuff they could have done in 20 minutes. It took them 2 or 3 hours. Now, I haven't had that issue. I've been catching up on a bunch of clients, but at the same time, not taking time for myself has just made me really, really lazy. The other thing is like, what do you do about it? You just got to get a little more proactive, be a little more creative about how you approach doing the work that used to be forced on you. You know what I mean? And that's what I actually wanted to ask you about, because there's always something that you really, really need to do that will make the biggest difference in your business or whatever, that we kind of cold calling, doing the books, maybe cleaning your email every night, that kind of thing. That if you would do that one thing, it would actually make your business better. And most people don't know how to put their finger on that. I know you're really good at staying on top of those things. Yeah. How do you do it?
Yeah, I think I learned something a while ago, and it's about productivity taxes and leeches. We've still taken it from a bunch of places. And we try to spend, is my voice, my lips, do I look like I'm talking over here?
Yeah, it does, but I'm ignoring it.
I don't know what to do. We're just gonna, hey, we'll rock this and I'll go like this. So in my time,
exactly.
I don't know what's going on. Software is great. But anyway, we ultimately talk about the idea of being very, very focused and disciplined. So it's silly concepts. Like the crap you don't want to do, start the day with it, right? Knock it out in the first hour. It's that idea that, look, you're not driving to work. You're not doing the lunches you used to do. You're taking some Zoom meetings. But are you kidding yourself about what you're really doing all day? Because I'm going to bet that most people are only working about 4 hours a day. What do you think?
Somewhere close to that. The other thing, too, is I found this with myself. A lot of stuff that when you are slammed with all this other shit in your day, that somehow you wind up getting more done because of the pressure. Now you got all day that email you wanted to get out, you know you need to get out in 30 minutes, but you'll spend an hour and a half kind of putzing around and let me look this up before I send it. You know, your day is spaced out when you've got a little more room.
Yeah.
So you're letting stuff take longer. You're making stuff take longer. That's frustrating for me, right? I like to get bang stuff out and have more day left, but
yeah,
that's what people want us to.
Yeah, it totally fills up your schedule. You know, it's just annoying and obnoxious. And today, you'll just sit down and you look and go, well, did I do everything I needed to do today? Unfortunately, the answer is no a lot. And, you know, it's real easy to, we've got all these virtual happy hours now, right? How many of those are you having a week?
Those are slowing down. Those are really slowing down. Like there was like 15 or 20 people on one for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then slowly it started to taper off. Where I've had 2 or 3 happy hours just kind of fall off the calendar. I think people are getting into other daily habits. But going back to making your business grow, because there's some people out there that are really hustling right now, really hustling, and they're going to grow out of this pandemic stronger, right? For people like you, you talked about putting those big rocks in first early in your day.
Yeah.
How do you pick those big rocks? Or put it this way, what are the common big rocks that people tend to neglect as far as growing their business? And, you know, we're generally talking to people in this kind of sales and marketing world, but business in general, what are those big rocks that people kind of put off?
Yeah, I think
put in early in the day.
Yeah, the biggest one is always prospecting and something else. Like everybody wants it's prospecting or something else. It's actually prospecting and something else, especially in this time. You got to get on your front foot and you got to get out there and talk to people who you can actually help. And I think that's a massive miss in today's world. But I think, you know, in your time doing sales training, I guess I would ask you this. Are people having problems trying to remember how they provide value for others?
Well, let me actually clarify how you mean that, because I think most people are realizing that they didn't know before. But how did you mean that? That's what I think my answer is. But how did you mean that? People didn't realize how they remember how they added value.
Yeah, I think they thought they were adding value before, and now they've realized they weren't. That it wasn't easy.
I think we're saying it the same way. So again, people thought that being busy was their value, right? And this still comes up a lot where they'll get off a call with a customer. It could have been a great call.
Yeah.
And then they'll immediately go into doing research for that customer that they just finished a call with, instead of making the next call, instead of planning and pushing that time off. So they get to the end of the day, they feel really, really busy, but their productivity, while they had some positive things, wasn't as high as it could have been if they compressed the difficult work into the front end. You know, it's kind of like drinking a milkshake, right? You sit there and you're banging away trying to get that thick milkshake through the straw. As soon as you get a taste, that little sip, some people are like, and they kind of stop and enjoy that little sip, right? Instead of just continuing to drink the shake. I think that's what happens with a lot of people. Like they would be working during the day and they would get busy with a little minutia and feel like they left the day fulfilled, but they didn't accomplish as much as they could have. I think that's becoming more obvious as they're at home.
Yeah, so let's not ignore the fact that there are more distractions at home than there ever were at work. Right?
You think? Yeah, I think so. I think so. You got to get that project done.
Yeah. I had a client say to me that he was talking to somebody and he said, look, he's talking to a customer and the customer goes, my kid's peeing in the corner. Like, you don't get those distractions like we use. Like, that's not you're not going to see a coworker doing that.
I was training this one client the other day, and he's sitting in the middle of the conversation talking, and his dog jumps up in his lap, starts licking him in the face.
Yeah.
You know, thankfully it was just a training class. I stopped the whole class so we could just acknowledge the dog and look at him, and he walked him out of the room. But nobody had a dog jump up and lick him in the face before. You know?
No, not in a training class.
No, certainly not in a training class.
Right. And so, and as a side note, for those of you who are watching this and notice that my audio is nowhere near what my mouth is doing, I have no idea how to fix it today, but I promise you by the next one we will. So just laugh at me, because most of you who are watching this probably actually know me and know that I'm a goofball. So that works out well.
This is like the old Channel 69 Kung Fu movies that came on really late at night when you're supposed to be in bed.
Yeah.
I see your Shaolin Kung Fu was as good as mine.
Yeah, I've actually I've looked while you've been talking. No idea. I'm going to have to fix this. It has literally never happened to me ever. So It's all right. We'll get through it. So okay, let's acknowledge something else, right? Let's talk about something else real quick. What about the idea of this virtual selling stuff? I've got a pretty strong opinion on this whole thing. What do you think about virtual selling today versus say what virtual selling was 12 months ago?
Well, I'll start with where it was 12 months ago versus where it was 2 or 3 years ago. First of all, 12 months ago, virtual selling was kind of relegated to the corners of the inside sales world, right? And us powerful, and I say us because I still remember cutting my teeth, starting out my role as an inside seller. We were the ones that were kind of blazing the trail on this digital virtual selling, and the innovative companies were trying to get these technologies in early, video conferencing and Skype and Zoom and all those other cool things so that we could do more from the phone, get beyond the phone from your desk.
Right.
So we kind of got ahead of that. Now, since 12 in this COVID crisis, virtual selling is the new imperative. It is the new shiny penny that everybody's chasing. It is the one thing that everybody has to master, because whether you want to or not, because clients have had to Zoom for so long, they're going to start to say, nah, we're not going to pay to fly you out. Let's just Zoom. I promise you, as much as you want to travel again, Mr. Salesman, you were bitching about being on the plane every week, you didn't want to leave, and now you want to travel, your client's going to be like, you know what? I don't feel like paying for your flight and hotel. We don't feel like doing that. So now you're going to have to do this. So since 12 months, it has become the most sought after skill and the biggest difference maker for everybody. But let's go back to where it was from 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. I think that it's advanced so far because of the new technologies, not just around specifically virtual conferencing, but everything around sales automation and the internet making information accessible to you at your desk.
Yeah.
Now that when you're on a call, you're more able to serve a client's needs. You got more information. You got your partners in Sri Lanka. Like, let me call my engineering team. Let me get them on. You're in the conference room. You only got what you brought in between your ears. Right. Maybe something on your laptop, but you got the whole world at your fingertips while you're talking to a customer. It's advanced that way because of technology. So I think we should embrace it.
Yeah. So here's the good news. Steve Keck just hit us up. You couldn't see it, Jason, because I've got the display, but he said we're in sync. So even though you and I think that our audio's off, everybody else thinks it's okay.
So you mean my little kung fu thing was just me being stupid? Like everybody else saw me.
It's definitely you being stupid, but that's a whole.
Okay, cool.
Those are mutually exclusive events. So okay, let me talk here for this remote versus virtual stuff. If you are just starting to remote sell, you are behind the eight ball. This is this argument that sales trainers and consultants have decided that, oh, you need to do it now. My clients have been doing this thing for 3, 4, 5 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, travel changed fundamentally after 9/11, right? And Apple and Google and the big companies, they don't want your salespeople walking the halls of their engineers.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. It goes back to I set you up earlier. It goes back to as sales teams and sales leaders and managers, we let ourselves down. We never developed value before.
Yeah.
Because people were buying your expensive services.
Mm-hmm.
They were buying them to fix a current problem instead of the real need.
Yeah.
Right? They weren't, there was no strategic implication. You as a salesperson didn't have to go ahead and create the difference between a current state and a future state.
Yeah.
As a sales leader, man, they got to get on that, because that is the problem today. We're acting like this virtual remote stuff. Here's the biggest difference with virtual and remote.
Yeah.
It's about management. It has nothing to do with the actual sales process.
I agree with that. I think that in the term management, inherent in that is building the skills of your team. Virtual selling, remote selling being one of them. But before you look at the medium by which you're doing the selling, it's the skill of the selling itself. So you had people who were going out there doing a good job of being at the lowest level, like a walking brochure, and somewhere in the middle being someone who could match up the needs of the product the capabilities of the product with the needs of the customer. That's one different level. But then you also had these charismatic people that would show up, and they were really just selling on charisma, selling on their presence
You
and
and I,
their relationship.
you and I never could do that.
No, not at all. But again, everyone who was unable to get to a customer, they always had to build value. Their words had to matter. Their content had to count. And everything they did, the action steps they took, had to deliberately, strategically advance the customer's thought process, the customer's buying process. So when you left them alone, you left them with action steps and you knew exactly what you're going to do in exactly this much time afterwards. That's what good inside sellers have to do for a long time. And then digital just happened to come along, right? So we kind of moved in it from a value perspective. And I was talking to Bob Perkins over at AAISP, focus on helping people. And great guy. Talking about, the journey of inside sales that was a relegated kind of, necessary evil. Well, somebody's got to answer the phone. Now it's being proven that these guys had to have clear, concise messaging, and they were focused on delivering value to the customer with every minute on that phone because they only had 30 and they were going to hang up. So we had to get good at that, and now all the other reps have to catch up.
Well,
so
let's run
that's
the gamut,
where management comes in. It's the managers that do that.
Let's run the
managers
gamut.
that do that.
Let's run the gamut. All right, sales leaders, stop sabotaging your SDRs. Stop telling your SDRs that they'll be promoted to AE or BDR the month they become good at their job. Right? That's like, you triggered me there, Jason, because it's like, let's let people get good. Let's give them a compensation that's commensurate with the value they bring, the amount of enterprise value somebody can generate by beginning the pipeline. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, companies who were really taking that sales 2.0 approach, who were really able to reach that sales alpha, they had the sense enough to bring their inside sales and their field sales and their marketing all together in one place. I got to go on the sales floor at Salesforce way back. They were working with us for some sponsorship of some of the nonprofits, and we were talking about some of the sales that they were doing from a sales training perspective as well. I was at IBM at the time. And they had a setup where a field seller would go out any given day, but twice a week he had to be in the office. Yeah. And his office was the cubicle at the end of a row where you had your dedicated inside sales guys sitting next to their dedicated SDR, BDR, where a marketing person was plugged in and they would come and visit on a regular basis. They had a desk there too, and another hot desk for any other technical reps that would come and join. And that role was his piece of the office in that Atlanta sales team. And so they were all in sync, and they were running bi-weekly, quarterly campaigns and efforts to go out and who are we going after now? They had a whiteboard at the end of every row, and they were working as a unit. That didn't come from the salesman. No. That was, as you said, a sales leader's decision to put quality in those roles, at every one of those roles, and make them work as a machine. Not saying we're going to take someone right out of college, drop them into this desk because, hey, this is the first touch my customer's ever going to see. This is the first taste of value. Let me put the lowest qualified person in the company to do it. And as soon as they get good, let's move them.
Yeah, and set them up like
they did it different.
I promise you, you want to do the best thing you can for a SDR. Leave them in the role for 2 full years. None of this 14, 15-month stuff. Let them become a top producer. And I promise you, because they'll know how to generate pipeline on their own, that will add to $1 million of income in their world over the course of their career. They got to do what's right for the people.
Can I take it a little more progressive, a little more outlandish step? I think that's somewhere in the cycle of a sales professional's development. You've hit your 2 years in the field. You're killing it. You're crushing it. We're going to make sure your salary last year is exactly the same plus.
Yeah.
But now you got to take your next 10 months, 12 months, and you're coming back to either work as a manager or a rep in inside sales. You're going to be on the phone a couple times a week. You're going to be developing the inside sales role. You're going to be imparting all this wisdom. You're bringing the best of your experience face-to-face with a customer back to that role. And you have to get there in the trenches and stay with that inside sales team to reinfuse, invigorate, and elevate those people to get them what you're experiencing in the field. By the way, they're probably going to give you a whole lot you need to know as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
And
that
I
should
know
be
that you
part of a
believe that.
rotation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get that feedback. Get that feedback loop going. So I think you did.
There
So
you go.
look, okay, so we've been going for a minute here, so we're gonna go for a couple minutes, but we talked about SDRs for a second. We've talked about, virtual selling, remote selling, why it matters, what you should be doing. Talk to me a little bit about, one of the things, I'm an Aslan partner, you're an Aslan senior consultant, so I want to go ahead and just give them their props. But one of the things they do really well is they talk about the enterprise sales role too, right? What's
Yeah.
changed in the enterprise sales role today? What do you, not even what's changed, as you're talking to clients or as you're talking to companies, what are you seeing that is probably the biggest gap in an enterprise salesperson's ability to be successful?
We've talked about this a lot, and I think the guys at Aslan got it right 20 plus years ago. It's still the same gap, is that most people who approach the sales role still have a mentality of serving the needs of the company they work for. And without thinking from that customer's perspective, they can't, as you talked about, deliver value.
Right.
When you don't have a mindset of taking that empathetic approach and starting with their needs and their problems, you're not going to be successful. And someone who has been extremely successful for millions of years by, not thinking in this way, they're not going to accept that straight off the bat.
Right.
And so there's this missing piece. There's this gap. There's this delta that they could have if they would just turn their approach towards, I'm going to get the people I don't reach by charisma. I'm going to get the people who are in the gray areas of the map that don't really respond to beers and lunches and the same types of things I've been doing. Let me work on the skills to get those people who are harder to reach, because there's people who are crushing their number with only 5% of the customers they have access to, right? So let's find a way to get those extras by working on the real connection to the customer, the building of receptivity to whoever you meet based on an understanding of where they are, not just on an intellectual level, but an emotional level as well. And I think that's the biggest gap. And what's changed is now the enterprise customer understands that. We've had this wave in the early 2000s where the idea of emotional quotient has gone through as this sought after thing. So the world understands, hey, wait a minute, I need to know that you, Mr. Sales Rep, are in it for me. And now in enterprise sales, the customer is looking for that type of emotional connection.
Yeah, and I think you can take it another step, right? So first of all, sales leaders out there, salespeople, if you've ever thought you had a closing problem, you don't have a closing problem, you have a value development problem. Because closing and creating urgency doesn't happen at the end of the cycle, because you don't choose when to add value. You add value when they say you did, right? And that's got to be the mindset from the discovery call all the way through the process, because you'll never know. Second is, regardless of what your offer is, you as the salesperson, you as the sales leader are the difference until they're ready to make a verbal commitment. And then your company de-risks the deal to get it to help you get it to close. So you've got to be fantastic on the front end, or everything else won't matter. I
love what you just said. Yeah, you're the differentiator. The messenger is the message. Big shout out to Liz Richardson, who helped work on that, and Dina Zenik, who did some time working on that whole aspect of working on the understanding of selling through empathy and connection, getting that real connection to your customer. So
yeah, that's awesome stuff. Well, look, hey, we're at a time right now where we're going to wrap. We're about a half hour in. You got any final words, final advice? We're going to make sure that everybody gets your contact information. We'll drop it in the comments on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But beyond that, you got any comments you want to send us off with?
No, you can definitely reach me at Jason at salessynergistics.com. But I would say that the number one thing, guys, is to focus on taking care of yourself, or you can't take care of your customer. Eat, drink water, sleep, meditate, exercise, which is on me. I got to do more of that. Do those things and watch your ability to produce improve.
Yeah, I know a guy who can help you out with that too, brother.
Thanks. I'd love to meet him.
So, all right, perfect. Wait, we want to thank everyone for joining us today. This has been a fantastic. This is the initial live stream. Could have asked for a better person to bring on than Jason Smith, my good buddy. We'll see you around the corner. Make sure you connect with Jason. Make sure you connect with me on all the appropriate social channels. But other than that, we're out of here. We'll see you soon. Bye. I think if I figure out how to shut us down, that is.